Madeline Smith was at the center of one of the most famous cases in Scottish history, a story that, for nearly 2 centuries, has sparked debate over where the line lies between desperate love and a crime hidden beneath the velvet drapes of respectability. In 1857, along the cobblestone streets of Glasgow, a spark ignited, consuming every moral framework Victorian society clung to. Inside the house at 7 Blitheswood Square, where heavy curtains shielded a respectable family from prying eyes, Madeleine, the eldest daughter of a wealthy architect, nurtured a relationship that would later be called destiny. Her lover, Pierre-Emile Langelier, did not belong to the world of ballroom dances and cold formalities. He was merely a warehouse clerk, an outsider, yet the letters they exchanged weighed more than any formal proposal. On quiet nights, Madeleine pleaded with him not to expose their past or turn her yearning for love into a banner of shame hung at her family's door. That February, she stepped into a pharmacy, signed her name in the poison register, and left with a quantity of arsenic, a white powder legally sold as rat poison. Hours later, Emile returned to his lodging, doubled over in severe stomach pain. 3 weeks after that, he died quietly, leaving behind a bundle of letters tied with a blue ribbon. Many believe this was the tragedy of a young woman crushed by merciless conventions. Others say Madeleine chose the cup of poison to protect her honor. After all this time, the question remains unanswered. On that final night, was she the victim of despair or a murderer cloaked in propriety? In the mid-19th century, Victorian England, 1837 to 1901, was governed by rigid moral codes and an inflexible class system. Women, especially those from the upper classes, were expected to strictly adhere to standards of honor, chastity, and conduct. They were meant to embody purity, obedience, and readiness for marriages arranged to reinforce their family's social standing. Before she became a name that haunted newspapers and courtrooms, Madeline Smith was born into an esteemed upper-class family. Madeline Hamilton Smith, born in 1835, was the eldest daughter of James Smith, a wealthy and respected architect in Glasgow. Her family belonged to the upper middle class and lived in an elegant home in Blitheswood Square, a symbol of prosperity. From an early age, she learned piano, dance, and the codes of behavior expected of the elite. Every dinner, every social gathering was a silent performance, where her parents' gazes reminded her that family honor outweighed any personal desire. Even Madeleine's voice was trained to be just soft enough to avoid appearing improper for a young lady. On winter afternoons, as the city sank into fog, she and her mother would walk along rows of dress shops, selecting silk fabrics, sometimes pausing in front of a jewelry display to admire rather than buy. That was how one maintained dignity, suppressing every longing within a gilt-edged frame called family status. Everyone who knew the Smith family believed Madeleine would one day become the wife of a distinguished merchant, reinforcing the family's social standing. At that time, marriage was a promise of connections, stability, and the advantages it could bring. Everything in Madeleine's life had been arranged from the day she returned from finishing school. In 1853, Madeleine turned 18, the age when many young women had already become engaged. Her father looked among the merchant class, weighing each family reputable enough to approach. Afternoon tea gatherings became occasions for discreet matchmaking. In everyone's eyes, Madeleine was the ideal model, educated, well-born, and gracefully composed. Yet behind the perfect appearance, she carried an independent, even rebellious spirit, one that strayed far from the era's ideal woman. It was this nature that led her to Pierre-Emile Langelier, a man Victorian society would never accept as her husband. Langelier, a French-born clerk, was the opposite of Madeleine in social standing. Born into a working-class family, he was employed at a trading firm in Glasgow, owning neither wealth nor notable reputation. Even so, he was described as a charming man with a peculiar allure that drew women to him, something that captivated Madeline from the first time they met in 1855. There are not many records describing the details of how the two met, but all sources agree that he possessed something Madeline had never dared to touch: the freedom to love and be loved without fear. In the Smith family's drawing room, where warm yellow lamplight shone across portraits of ancestors, Madeline would sit in quiet thought, her eyes distant, as if she were dreaming of another life. Is anyone ever truly free to love when honor is valued above happiness? The love of any 20-year-old girl is often full of dreams and passion. There are many ways to see Madeline Smith, an upper-class young woman harboring ambitions that exceeded the role assigned to her, or simply a young woman longing to be loved, but lacking the courage to abandon the family name that had raised her. But in the letters that remained, one can find another voice, gentle, almost desperate, the voice of someone who feared both losing love and the shame that would descend when the secret was exposed. Family, honor, placed above every personal desire, became a burden pressing on her mind, with the fear of losing her reputation lurking constantly, especially as she stepped into a secret relationship with Langelier. Madeline truly gave him all her affection, feeling loved as a free woman rather than a commodity in arranged marriages. Her letters, made public during the 1857 trial, revealed moments of vulnerability when she begged for Langelier's attention, exposing her fear of abandonment and loss of control. With his allure and ambition to rise above his class, he became the only person who made her feel understood, but also her greatest threat when he refused to end the relationship and threatened to expose their love letters. In the bedroom with heavy curtains, she once wondered whether love was merely a mistake she would one day have to pay for. Madeline's inner conflict grew sharper when her family pushed her toward an engagement in 1857. She stood at a crossroads. On one side, her longing for freedom and love with Langelier. On the other, the pressure to meet societal expectations and protect her family's honor. According to the records that remain, she wanted to end her relationship with Langelier to avoid scandal, yet she could not fully sever the tie because of her emotional dependence on him. The fear of losing the only person who made her feel free weighed heavily on her mind, while the prospect of being shunned by society for a forbidden love kept her living in anxiety. Madeline, caught between personal desire and social pressure, became the image of a Victorian woman torn by complicated contradictions, where every choice came with a high price. If she had been free to love without fear, would she have chosen a different path? Life does not allow us to live by what-ifs. It forces us to choose and pay the price. After much consideration, Madeline's family finally settled on someone who met the Victorian society's standards to become her ideal suitor. William Minnock was a middle-aged man, a wealthy merchant belonging to the upper middle class. Although details about his personal life were limited, Minnock was described as a stable man with assets and good social connections, in stark contrast to Langelier, her secret lover from the working class. However, this engagement, instead of opening a new chapter, became the catalyst for unusual actions, rumors, and conflict. It exposed a web of suspicion and tension, where the truth was obscured by scattered fragments. When the secret relationship between Madeline and Langelier began to leak, whispers started to spread throughout Glasgow's upper class. The servants in the Smith household noticed Langelier appearing near the basement window where Madeline often met him late at night. Some of Langelier's friends said he had spoken to them about his declining health after his meetings with Madeleine, and even made a haunting remark: "If she ever poisoned me, I would still forgive her." These words, though emotional, became fuel for the rumors. In a society where reputation was everything, Gossip about Madeline's forbidden affair spread quickly, turning her into the subject of constant discussion. The suspicious looks from neighbors and society only increased the pressure on Madeline, and soon after, troubling signs began to appear. In early 1857, Madeline walked into a pharmacy on Buchanan Street in Glasgow to buy arsenic. According to court records, she signed her real name and address in the poison register, stating that the arsenic was to kill rats, a common purpose among upper-class Victorian households. The shopkeeper willingly sold it to her, as arsenic was legally sold as a pesticide. In the weeks that followed, Langelier repeatedly complained of severe stomach pains after meeting her late at night near the house on Blitheswood Square. After that, Madeline purchased arsenic at least 2 more times, stating that she used the substance diluted as a cosmetic, a dangerous practice, but not uncommon at the time. However, this explanation was met with suspicion, as the dates when she bought arsenic coincided with the periods of Langelier's illness. Some believed that all the signs were merely the cruel coincidences of fate, but others argued that since she rarely purchased arsenic before, buying it 3 times in such a short span must have had a purpose. In her final letters, Madeline's tone changed. She both pleaded and urged Emile to return all the correspondence. When he refused and threatened to deliver them to her father, the atmosphere in their already fragile relationship grew thick with fear and intimidation. Every letter left unburned, every promise left unkept, became a small cut into the honor of the Smith family. The elegant house on Blitheswood Square, once a symbol of prosperity, gradually turned somber as suspicion spread. Small details like the bottle of powder in Madeline's room or the letters she had not yet burned became scattered but haunting fragments in the eyes of the servants and her family. Madeline's parents tightened on their watch as the rumors grew. Glasgow's upper class, accustomed to gossiping about honor and propriety, made Madeline the subject of relentless whispers, especially as her relationship with her lover came to light. The servants recounted hearing quiet footsteps crossing the wooden floors, small sounds that rose and then fell, leaving behind a heavy silence. If you were someone living in that house, what would you have believed? In March 1857, the death of Pierre-Emile Langelier sent shockwaves through Glasgow. The story of his final night and the investigation that followed revealed a series of troubling details, from unburned love letters to bottles of arsenic, placing Madeleine at the center of a highly controversial case. It severely shook the reputation of an upper-class family. On the night of March 22nd, 1857, Langelier left his lodgings quietly, carrying a letter from Madeline Smith. He returned around midnight, writhing in intense stomach pain. According to his landlady, he cried out about a sensation like fire burning in his belly. This was not the first time he had suffered such symptoms, as similar attacks had occurred over the preceding weeks, coinciding with his meetings with Madeleine. On the morning of March 23, 1857, Langelier died after many hours struggling with the pain. He was found exhausted, displaying symptoms consistent with severe poisoning. The letter from Madeleine, discovered in his coat pocket, invited him to a meeting the previous evening and became crucial evidence linking her to his death. The sudden passing of Langelier, a man previously in good health, raised suspicions in the community, especially as rumors about his forbidden relationship with Madeleine began to spread. The post-mortem examination, conducted immediately after his death, revealed that the cause of death was arsenic poisoning in a large quantity. The investigation showed that the timing of his attacks of pain coincided with the occasions when Madeleine purchased arsenic at chemist shops in Glasgow, as recorded in the poison register from 1850 January to March 1857. The police quickly searched Langelier's lodgings and found hundreds of love letters from Madeleine, many of them unburned, exposing a secret relationship that had lasted 2 years. These letters, ranging from passionate declarations of affection to pleading and threats, painted a portrait of a Madeline torn between love and the pressures of society. Additionally, bottles of arsenic were found in the Smith household, which, though not directly linked to Langeliers' death, became silent but haunting pieces of evidence. These letters and bottles, like scattered fragments, deepened the suspicion surrounding Madeline's role in the case. The investigation placed tremendous pressure on the Smith family. Madeline's parents, members of the upper middle class, faced harsh criticism from public opinion. The press seized upon the story, making Madeline the center of scandal. Rumors spread rapidly among Glasgow's upper circles, with afternoon teas filled with talk of the forbidden romance and the suspicion of murder. Though Madeline denied having seen Emile in the final weeks, the letters and the records of arsenic purchases contradicted her testimony. When the door closed after the post-mortem, what truth had been buried? The post-mortem examination, conducted immediately after his death, revealed that the cause of death was arsenic poisoning in a large quantity. The investigation showed that the timing of his attacks of pain coincided with the occasions when Madeline purchased arsenic at chemist shops in Glasgow, as recorded in the poison register from 1850 January to March 1857. The police quickly searched Langeliers' lodgings and found hundreds of love letters from Madeline, many of them unburned, exposing a secret relationship that had lasted 2 years. These letters, ranging from passionate declarations of affection to pleading and threats, painted a portrait of a Madeline torn between love and the pressures of society. Additionally, bottles of arsenic were found in the Smith household, which, though not directly linked to Langeliers' death, became silent but haunting pieces of evidence. These letters and bottles, like scattered fragments, deepened the suspicion surrounding Madeline's role in the case. The investigation placed tremendous pressure on the Smith family. Madeline's parents, members of the upper middle class, faced harsh criticism from public opinion. The press seized upon the story, making Madeline the center of scandal. Rumors spread rapidly among Glasgow's upper circles, with afternoon teas filled with talk of the forbidden romance and the suspicion of murder. Though Madeline denied having seen Emile in the final weeks, the letters and the records of arsenic purchases contradicted her testimony. When the door closed after the post-mortem, what truth had been buried? In June 1857, the trial of Madeline Hamilton Smith, accused of poisoning Pierre-Emile Langelier, became the focus of intense public attention at the High Court in Edinburgh, drawing large crowds and the avid interest of the press. The trial, which lasted 9 days, was a fierce legal battle between the prosecution and the defense, exposing numerous contradictions in the evidence. The proceedings commenced on June 30th, 1857. The courtroom was packed with people, from the upper classes to common citizens, all pressing forward to witness the sensational scandal involving a young woman of high standing. Reporters described her as a beautiful yet enigmatic figure, her gaze calm but defiant as she faced the charges. The prosecution, led by James Moncrief, argued that Madeline had a clear motive to kill Langelier. They presented ample evidence regarding the poison, and the results of the post-mortem examination further reinforced these accusations. The prosecutor emphasized Madeline's final letter, found in Langelier's coat pocket, summoning him to meet her on the evening before his death. They contended that Madeline, under pressure from her impending engagement to the merchant William Minnock, had deliberately poisoned Langelier to prevent him from revealing their secret relationship, which could have destroyed her reputation. The passionate love letters, read aloud in court, provoked outrage as they revealed conduct deemed improper for a woman of her social rank. The defense counsel, led by John Inglis, argued that the direct evidence linking Madeleine to Langellier's death was unconvincing. They pointed out that arsenic was a common substance, and Madeleine's purchase of it did not prove an intent to commit murder. Inglis raised the question of whether Langellier might have taken his own life or been poisoned accidentally, as he had expressed emotional instability to his friends. Madeleine's letters, while revealing a forbidden relationship, contained only the sentiments of ordinary affection. Inglis emphasized that the prosecution lacked any witness who had seen Madeleine give arsenic to Langellier, and her testimony that she had not seen him in the final weeks remained intact. The defense also skillfully evoked sympathy, portraying Madeleine as a victim of societal pressure and a misguided romance. The press outside the courtroom was divided into two camps: those who believed she was a cold-blooded murderer, willing to destroy a life to protect her honor, and those who said this was merely the tragedy of a forbidden love affair. During the days of the trial, crowds gathered around the courthouse each morning. They waited for the carriage that would take Madeleine back to the jail, quietly watching her face behind the window draped in thin fabric. After many days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of not proven on July 9th, 1857, according to the Glasgow Herald. Under Scottish law, this verdict established that there was insufficient evidence to convict Madeleine, but did not declare her innocent. As Madeleine left the court, the eyes of those around her remained filled with doubt. Some sighed, others shook their heads, and in the murmuring of the crowd, the story of a young woman, a forbidden love, and a mysterious death continued to spread, as though no verdict would ever be enough to silence it. If you had been among that crowd, would you have believed in her innocence or seen a crime concealed behind the veil? The story of Madeline Smith is a reflection of Victorian society, a society draped in a veneer of propriety yet filled with contradictions. In an era when family honor was placed above every personal desire, Madeleine's choice, whether she was innocent or not, still reflected the shared tragedy of many women of her time. They were taught that love was a silent duty, that marriage was a contract rather than a union of free will. And when longing strayed beyond those conventions, they had no escape but concealment or denial. In that context, a single love letter could become evidence used to judge a woman's character. Yet that same letter was also the voice of a woman trying to break free from the glass cage of society. The public and the press's outrage over these letters revealed a society that opposed a woman's freedom of feeling, turning Madeleine into a symbol of both rebellion and sin. The case posed the question: did a woman have the right to love beyond the boundaries society imposed? Or must she pay for it with her reputation and her freedom? On the social level, the case highlighted inequalities of class and gender. Madeleine, from an upper-middle-class family in Blitheswood Square, was pressured to marry William Minnock to strengthen her family's standing. Langellier, a clerk of French origin, was seen as a threat because of their forbidden affair and his ambition to cross social lines. Glasgow's upper class, which prized honor above all, made Madeleine the focus of their criticism, while Langellier was regarded as an opportunist. The press, exploiting the case as a sensational story, deepened these divisions. This was a tale of how society punishes those who dare to challenge its rules. On a psychological level, Madeleine embodied inner conflict. Too many contradictions came at her from every side, and she could choose only one path. The not proven verdict, beyond leaving the mystery of Langellier's death unresolved, revealed society's inability to comprehend the complex mind of a woman trapped in opposing expectations. More than a century has passed, Yet the question remains unchanged. Have we truly moved beyond the merciless standards of the Victorian age? How many still live lives hiding their desires, fearing judgment, imprisoning themselves in roles they dare not break? And what keeps this case alive is the haunting question: just how high a price must be paid for the desire to love freely? The answer lies with each of us. This is Case X. Every perspective deserves to be heard. If you had been seated in that courtroom, which verdict would you have chosen?